This podcast is brought to you by Hoare Chartered Accountants. Hoare Chartered Accountants are based in Galway City and are a leading provider of audit, accountancy and taxation services. For more information, visit hoarecharteredaccountants.ie. You're welcome along to the Maroon and White pod. So it is Galway Mayo part 2. Obviously, they played on Sunday in the FBD League final, and Galway just coming out on top 212 to 114 at the weekend. I'm delighted to be joined by former Galway footballer Johnny Duane to take a look at Galway Mayo in the opening round of the National Football League. Johnny, from your own experience, what is this like? What is this like this time of year? Obviously, it's, I presume, a lot of tough sessions, and you're trying to, I suppose, get yourself right for the games. And obviously, after this weekend, games are really going to come thick and fast for Galway.
Yeah. I suppose it's hard on the college lads this time of year. It's a heavy schedule. So they're kind of playing. If you're playing Sigerson, you're on Wednesday, Sunday. So I'm sure it's a headache for the management teams trying to manage load. But I suppose for the lads that aren't playing college football, I know you're nearly on every week, which is great. You know, you want to be playing games. December and the start of January isn't the most enjoyable time of year when you're training. So when the games come, it's always good. But yeah, I'm sure the management this is probably one of the toughest times of the year, trying to manage load in players, especially those Sigerson players, this time of year.
How important is it for this time of year then? Because obviously there's players getting opportunities. We've seen it throughout the FBD yesterday. Obviously, a lot of players have got opportunities in these three games. And when you're looking to make this breakthrough, you really do need to make an impression this time of year.
Yeah, I was just thinking of it yesterday watching the match. It's brilliant for those players that are maybe their first year or two into a Galway panel. You know, you can play all the challenge games in the world, but when there's that bit of a competitive edge, and even for example yesterday, it's a draw game with 2 or 3 minutes to go. You know, that's where you're going to show. Are you able for the step up into intercounty? A lot of lads played yesterday. You know, probably their first year into an intercounty setup. So, as I said, for those guys, it's brilliant. You know, it's brilliant. It's better than any training session, any challenge match. So yeah, I think it's really good. And as you said, a lot of guys got game time. You know, so they'll have no excuses. You know, coming into the league. You know, that they didn't get game times or anything like that. So yeah, I think it's great, especially for those guys new into the panel.
Plenty of faces have impressed this time of year. It's obviously good for Pork and the group now ahead of the league.
Yeah, definitely. And it's, you know, like even yesterday, I thought Cogger had a good game. Shane McGrath has been good throughout all the FPD. So you know, it's kind of hard to know. You don't know what team is going to be out this weekend. Are some of them lads going to get a bit of game time? You know, are they going to go with the tried and tested? We haven't really seen any of them in the FPD, so we'll probably have to wait till later in the week to see, you know, both Mayo and Galway what teams will be named. But I'm sure there will be a couple of those guys that have got games and impressed in the FPD. I think they will see some game time in the National League.
You obviously mentioned Brian Cogger there and Shane McGrath. Other players as well. Do you expect? Obviously, it's been a mix and match really. It's been the development panel along with three or four senior players each day. But do you expect much from this development panel now? To, I suppose, even if they get onto the extended squad, it's success, or even onto 26 now.
Yeah, like, well, you have a couple of lads as well that aren't going to be playing this year, you know, so people need to be brought into the panel. You know, like some of these guys that I mentioned, they mightn't play in National League this year. But maybe in a year or two's time, you know, they're young lads. This will all stand to them, you know, It's gone are the days where you come out of a minor and you're ready to go and play senior. Those days are kind of gone. So you have to ply your trade, go through your FBD. Obviously, you'll have the exception of a player that's will go straight into a championship team like a Matthew Thompson or something like that. But it takes a while to get up to speed. So um, it might not be this year. It might not be this year. We'll see them in a championship match or in a towards the end of the National League, but maybe in a year or two's time, you might see these guys playing because it's not going to be the same team forever. You need to get a few fresh faces in there. So yeah, it's hard to know. It's hard to know. We don't know what way they're going to go this weekend. So we'll kind of have to wait and see.
Even Johnny Heaney obviously has departed. Carl Sweeney, Tom O'Cullan. Johnny Heaney and Carl Sweeney in particular played in so many different positions for Galway over the years. Tomo's goal up in Newry as well last year, obviously crucial. Those positions are going to be really important to fill.
Yeah, and when you think of it, like those three guys have got a lot of experience. They've been there for two All Irelands. Not every guy that you're going to bring into a panel is going to have near as much experience as these guys. Like Johnny Heaney's been a stalwart for Galway for the last, I don't know, maybe 10 odd years, maybe more. So it's hard. It's hard to get that experience. But as I said, the wheel's going to keep turning. Everyone is not going to wait around forever. So new guys have to come in. But I do think, from an experience point of view, those three guys, they will be a loss. Especially going into a National League. If you look at the last couple of years National League games, those three guys, apart from maybe Tomo been injured, they've played a lot of games. So as you said, you're going to have to fill those spaces. And it probably gives guys that were on the extended panel for the last couple of years a chance to step up and get a bit of National League and maybe championship games this year.
It does really show maybe early on that Galway maybe might be a bit weaker than there towards the end of the league. If you look at the minute, obviously John Maher still injured, Matthew Thompson gone to the States. From what we're hearing yesterday with John Cannon in the interview, Damien and Shane as well, Kerry and Knox at the minute, Keane Darcy as well. Obviously, he's had a long campaign with Ballyboden too.
Yeah, so it's like when you just mentioned all those names. If you're without those guys, you're back to the wall straight away. They're big players. They're big players for Galway. But then as you said, it gives other guys a chance to step up. We kind of don't know what team is going to go out, but um, if all those players are going to be missing, it's going to be a tough task. I think for Galway to do well, they need their best players fit and on the pitch. And unfortunately, for the last couple of years, that hasn't been the case. Um, I'm dreaming of a year where we see Shane and Damo play together, get a run of form, stay injury free. I know the start of the league isn't the most important, but I would like to see them get a bit of minutes together. I think when you have a fully fit Galway, that's when you're going to see the best version of them. And unfortunately, for the past couple of years, they haven't had that.
It's almost every year sort of on the podcast we've been talking about obviously Shane and Damo's fitness. When you're thinking about where Galway are at, does it still very much come back for you to the fitness of Shane and Damien?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, because when they're fit, when they're on form, especially with the new rules, I think those two guys are lethal weapons for Galway. Um, I think they'd be unstoppable. If you had them two guys inside with a 3v3 with the new rules, um, you know, we say, oh, we can't be relying on them. If we're being honest and calling a spade, we need them. We need those two guys playing together. If we're going, please God, going to get to where we want to go to. So I do. I know we can't be relying on them all the time, but if we're being honest with ourselves as Galway supporters, we need those two guys fit and playing. I think. So hopefully, hopefully, fingers crossed, we do see them play together this year.
There's obviously still a bit of uncertainty around Paul Conroy and Peter Cook at the minute. Maybe it is just with Conroy at the age. Personally, I think if he doesn't come back to till the end of the league, it's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, and it's massive experience there as well. Paul's been there for, I don't know, 15 years. He might more. And Cookie's been around a long while as well. So no more than the three guys we mentioned that are stepping away. There's a lot of experience not there for the start of the league. Anyways, maybe come the end of the league, I'm not too sure. Um, but I suppose that's when these guys that have been on thereabouts on the panel for the last couple of years are going to have to step up and step up to those leadership roles. The likes of your Keane Darcy, he did brilliant here with Ballyboden, um, Sean Kelly, all these guys. It's time now for them guys to really take the bull by the horns, and especially for the start of the league if they are going to be missing all these experienced players.
Where do you think we're at this year?
It's hard to know. Like we haven't seen any of our, well, I suppose, main players play yet this year. So we don't know. We don't really know. We'll know more when the team's named, and on Sunday evening we'll see where we're at. Um, so I think, as I said already, I think injuries are a massive thing. Um, hopefully we can get a healthy squad with no long-term injuries, and then you're thereabouts. You're thereabouts in Connacht. You're thereabouts going into the All Ireland series if you've a fully fit squad. Um, so it's hard to know. It's hard to know. Hopefully, apart from those guys that you mentioned, everyone else is fit, because otherwise you're going into probably an inexperienced team going to face Mayo, which is no easy task.
Obviously, last year a big setback to lose to Meath in the quarter final, but obviously it's you have to park that now to one side. On that defeat, do you think that can nearly get this Galway team going again? Because obviously they've been so close previously, but it was obviously a big setback along the way last year.
Yeah, I suppose they'll probably be very disappointed with the way it finished last year. The game kind of just got away from them, and they couldn't get to grips with it. So there probably is that bit of, they want to right the wrongs. Um, and what better way to do it than Mayo coming to town? So yeah, I think some lads would have been itching to get back on the field this year, because of that performance against Meath. Um, they actually were going quite well at the start of the game, and then Meath just took over and we couldn't get it back. So um, yeah, as you said, it could ignite the fire again to say, this is it's time now we actually go and do something, and not let something like that happen again, where you're bet by a team that you would have been favourites going into the game.
Obviously, Mayo focuses the mind straight away. It's almost going to be nearly two different teams you'd imagine. Anyways, a lot more experienced. Um, back on both Galway's and Mayo teams this weekend. Uh, no matter what sort of game it is, and I'm sure during your own career, this focuses the mind straight away. Anyways,
Oh, it's a brilliant game to start with. You ask any Galway person or Mayo person, it's the one you look at when the fixtures come out. If you can't get up for a Galway Mayo game, you're in the wrong spot. So yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. But I do think what's very important in this league is to win your home games. Galway very hard fixture list this year. They're away to Kerry, Donegal, Monaghan, Armagh. So you're on the road a lot. You need to win your home games. You've got Roscommon, Mayo, and Dublin at home. Um, so I really do think, especially to be safe in Division One, you need to be winning your home games. So yeah, I think the Galway guys in that panel will be chomping at the bit to give Mayo a rattle this weekend.
yeah, it's a good point to make there. There's a 6 day turnaround then. Saturday. They head to Armagh, the Athletic Grounds, and we all know how tough of a place that is to go on as well. 6 days. Important here too to nearly start on a positive note. Obviously, supporters will be obviously happy to get the FBD League win over Mayo, but maybe people don't really necessarily know where we're fully at going into 2026. To start on a positive note here would be really important for Galway.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think we're kind of all we don't really know where we're at as supporters yet. So this weekend will tell a lot. But yeah, I think this is a big one. It's always nice to start off with a win, especially when you're at home to Mayo. So yeah, and as you said, there, 6 day turnaround. Even if it was a 6 day turnaround for a home game, that's a lot. You have to factor in your travel to Armagh. You probably go the night before. Then you're travelling back and you're gone again the following weekend. So it is a tough run of fixtures for Galway. So I do think this weekend, they'll want to get off to a winning start and probably most importantly, put in a good performance. You know, see where we're at in terms of the guys that will be playing.
In saying that, Mayo and Andy are really going to target this one.
Yeah, yeah. Andy Moran is doing a lot of talking at the moment, which I don't know is it good or bad. So you'd be kind of weary. In another way, you'd be saying, is he right to be doing all this talking? But anyways, yeah, they're going to be well drilled. You know yourself, and it's going to come down to no more than yesterday. It'll come down to the last kick of the ball. So yeah, it's just going to be. I think the team that makes the least amount of mistakes midfield will be massive. Um, so yeah, if you can win the midfield battle and gain possession, that's where all your foundation will come from. But yeah, look, it's going to be tit for tat, um, and please God, Galway come out the right side.
Is there any players you'd like to see more of in 26 that maybe we didn't see enough of last year?
Um, it's I'd like to see more. I'd like to see more Demo, and I'd like to see more Shaney. But in terms of guys on the fringe, um, yeah, it's hard to know. No one springs to mind really. I would like to see the likes of Shane McGrath get a bit of league time and see where he's at. Um, he's kind of like a Johnny Heaney type of player. Um, so I think he's very athletic. He's good on the ball. So I'd like to see after a good FBD league. I think he does deserve probably a couple of runs out in the league. Um,
He's something different too, isn't it? Even the
yeah,
way he breaks the line, it's
yeah,
maybe something we haven't had for a while either.
yeah, and he even playing in club games against him, he's very elusive. Very good at taking you on 1v1. And I think in the modern game, you probably saw the games yesterday, even the FBD game. There's a lot of that. If you can beat your man 1v1 and create an overlap, there's a high percentage of a score or definitely a shot coming off that. So yeah, I would like to see him. I would like to see him get a bit of game time and see where he's at, and probably well deserved after a good FBD. Um, yeah,
Probably having to debate a lot last year about John Daly. He gives Galway so much going forward, but then maybe we didn't see him enough, particularly after the Derry game last year. Maybe felt that he was going to get into the team, but particularly under the new rules, it seems like a player we can really, I suppose, thrive with coming from the back and that kick pass option he gives.
yeah. I think he's definitely a weapon for Galway. He's an unbelievable kick passer of the ball, and I think he can definitely be fit into some sort of system defensively and offensively. Um, I suppose it goes back again to fitness. I've heard he had a couple of knocks last year, and that's probably why he wasn't getting as much game time, or maybe not. So again, it goes back to that. If you have a fully fit John Daly, um, I think he definitely can fit into that system. And as you said, with his kick passing from an attacking point of view, that's definitely something that Galway could use a lot more. I know they actually do quite well on a slow attack, but even yesterday when they did go on that fast attack or a counter attack, they got a nice bit of joy off it. Like Cogger got his goal from a kick pass inside, and we probably don't use that enough. It's high risk, but I think definitely when you have a kicker like John Daly, we should be using it that a bit more. So, yeah, I'd love to see him. I'd love to see him play and use that attacking force that he has, especially his kick passing.
How do you think Galway will use the league this year?
Um, I think, as I said, I think they have to win their home games. The games on the roads are tough. Um, if you can win your home games and win one, maybe two games away, then you're safe and you're it's quite a decent league. It all depends, kind of. You'll know halfway through the league where you are. In terms of, are you trying to survive or are you trying to go and win the league? Um, but I'll come back to again. It's injuries. If you don't have a fully fit squad, well, thereabouts, mostly fully fit guys, your backs are going to be against the wall straight away. Um, so it's yeah, we'll know more. We'll know more when the team is named, and we'll know more on Sunday evening, kind of who we have available, I suppose.
We seen last year with Kerry, like maybe people viewed the league and obviously going into a championship for some teams a week after it can often be seen as a negative. But Kerry obviously shown last year it's no harm at all winning the league before you head into the championship.
Yeah, definitely. You can't beat winning. It instills confidence into the group. I suppose from Kerry's point of view, Munster wouldn't be as strong or hasn't been as strong the last couple of years. So they can kind of peak at a certain time and then taper it off again. Whereas you could have a Galway going straight into a Roscommon or a Sligo or a Mayo. So that's kind of where it's a bit different. If you got to a league final and you have a championship game the following week, it's just about managing that load. But I do think it's been a long time since Galway won a national league, and I think Porrick has said it himself. He'd love to win a national league. So yeah, look, I don't think if Galway won a national league, I don't think it'll do them any harm at all.
Particularly when you look at it too, it's not Sligo or Leitrim till the semi-final. There's a break between the league and championship for them this year as well.
Yeah, so they'll definitely want to go as far as they can. So yeah, look, I don't think Galway will be holding up, and you never do hold up in a league game. Every game you go out to play, you're going out to win. So yeah, I think look at if Galway can get on a run of form, they'll definitely be going, to try win the National League, as with every other team in Division One. Like no team is going to turn around and say no, we don't want to win it. Every team is going to be going to win it. But as I said, when you come halfway through the league, you'll know where you are in terms of, are you looking to survive or are you looking to maybe win a National League or get to a final.
It's cutthroat now, Division One, the way it's become, hasn't it? There's no bad teams at all in it.
Yeah, yeah, you're into, it's high pressure games. You're at home against Mayo and then you're on the road to whatever it is, Armagh. So as you said, yeah, no easy games, but it's brilliant. It's brilliant preparation for these guys that are coming into the panel or that have been on the fringes for a while that are going to get a lot of game time. It's brilliant. That'll set you up for a tough kind of championship and please God a tough and long All Ireland series.
From your own experiences, these first couple of games, round one, round two, it's obviously the conditions aren't ideal. It's more challenging. Probably games are more enjoyable as you come round five, round six, round seven, I presume.
Yeah, completely different games. On Sunday, you'll probably have a gale force win in Pear Stadium, like there always is, even in. The ground will be soft, the ball will be heavy. So you're just going back to basics really. Whereas come the last round or two of the league, the ground starts to harden up, and there's a bit of good weather, and it's different. It's a different game. Like we talk about kick passing, if there's a gale force wind in Pearse Stadium and it's wet and a heavy ball, your kick passing game isn't going to be that strong this Sunday. Whereas in 6 or 7 weeks' time or 8 weeks' time, with that dry ball, then you can go kicking ball. It's not as risky. So yeah, they're completely different games really when you think of it. So yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. Certain guys will thrive in this winter football, and other guys, they just thrive in that summer football.
How do you see Sunday going?
Um, as I said, I think it'll be tit for tat no more than yesterday. We were kind of going into the unknown as well yesterday. But Galway Mayo, it's going to be thereabouts. I think home advantage might suit Galway, so um, hopefully they can come out with a win, which would be a great start for the guys in there. Um, but as I said, it'll be very close.
Uh, Johnny, I know you're involved with the Galway Miners over the last couple of years there. How challenging of an age is the under 17 age group, do you feel maybe at the minute?
Yeah, it was challenging. It was my first time going into coaching, I suppose, and it's a bit different with underage. They're a lot of these, well, all of them, right, guys are still in school. Your communication to them is through their parents, and it's just a lot different to, would say, an under 20 or a senior team. But very enjoyable all the same. There's a lot of talent coming through there in Galway football, and even the last 2 years that I was involved with the minors, you see guys going on that are now involved with the under 20s panel with Kevin Johnson, and I suppose that's kind of all you want. When you're there in it and you're a part of the management team, you obviously want to win, and you're disappointed. But when you take a step back and it's all over and done with, I suppose the most important thing for all of football is, can you get a handful of those young lads to, please God, go on and play senior for Galway? So yeah, it's satisfying now that some of those guys that were on the panel for the last couple of years have now made the step up to under 20. Um, so yeah, it was very enjoyable. But yeah, it's challenging from a management point of view. It's different. You're probably not as hands on as you'd like to be in terms of a lot of your communication. In fact, all of your communication is through the parents. Um, and no more than managing load, these guys are playing soccer and football and hurling in school, and then you have your clubs and all that. So yeah, it was a great experience.
From your own experience, would you like to see it back to 18s? I know certain people would like to see it back there.
100%. Yeah, 100%, because they're a year older, they're that bit more mature. Some of these guys coming into us could be 15 years of age, if they were 2 years underage for minor. So they're very young, they're very young. So I definitely would like to see it going back to under 18, and I would like to see under 20 go back to under 21, because you suppose you look at the dropout of players after they finish underage football. We'll say under 21 or under 20. Some guys, they'll play under 20, they won't play again. Whereas if you can get those guys playing an extra year until they're 21, they're that bit more mature. They might then realise that they can actually step up into senior football. So definitely, I would love to see it going back to under 18 and under 21.
Even particularly what that'd do for the clubs, I know in Galway, because it's under 19 at the
Yeah,
minute as well.
and going back to the dropout. Some guys in a club team, they're young lads. They just want to play club football. They want to play underage, play with their friends. Some of these guys are 19. They're finished underage football. They don't want to go playing. They don't want to go playing junior with adults. They don't want to go into a senior setup that's nearly like an inter-county setup. And that's where the dropout comes. Or that's under 19. If you had another 2 years with those guys, of developing those guys, they'd still have their underage football. I think you'd see a lot more of these guys playing junior and, well, say, adult football, whether that be junior, intermediate, senior. So especially for the clubs, I think under 19s is it's way too young.
I know even from your own time, and even with the under 20s, the last year or two, maybe Galway found it maybe difficult to challenge for that kind of title at minor and 20s level. What do you put that down to when you look at it? Is it just maybe that certain counties maybe are just ahead of us at that age, or obviously it's important for Galway to get back contending for Connacht titles at this age?
Yeah, yeah, it is. I suppose from a minor point of view, it's a bit mad. You know, it's like it's like a club team and underage teams. In some age groups, you're just going to have an exceptional group of players.
Yeah.
Like we'll say Mayo lad the year before last. We'll say it would have been Kobe McDonald's age group. They were brilliant. They were just better. They were better than us. They were better than everyone in Connacht really. Um, and then last year, I suppose, we had a really good team. So it's hard. It's hard when they're that young. It's hard to put your finger on it. Uh,
Mm.
but it is important that you're trying to contest for Connacht titles. But at the same time, I think it's more important that these guys get an experience of this is an intercounty setup. Um, do I really want to be in here? Can I go and play under 20? And please God, go play in senior for Galway. Um, it's not the be all and end all if you win something underage. I think Galway have a lot of underage success in the last, I don't know how many years, but unfortunately, if you win an All Ireland minor under 20 doesn't mean you're going to win it senior. So look, it'd be lovely to be winning Connacht minor and under 21 titles or 20 titles. But I think the bigger picture is probably more important that you're developing these guys um, to make that step up to senior. Um, so that's my own opinion. When I'm in it, I'm the opposite. I just want to win. But then when you take a step back, you could be winning minor titles, but what's that going to do for your senior team?
Yeah, even if you, I think if you look at it from a schools perspective as well, you have Mayo really. They've four or five schools in A level. Galway have two, and we've seen. I know Roscommon don't have a whole lot. It's only really Roscommon CBS, but definitely does feel for Mayo like to have that many schools at A level. It's getting maybe certain lads exposed to that high level of football very early.
Yeah, and it's probably one of the most important factors of underage football in Galway. If you look at schools in Galway City, um,
Yeah,
do they have anyone playing in A football? No, they don't. You're looking at Charlotte's, maybe Clare Galway, Headford have had a decent team, but go from the city back west. Unfortunately, there's no real strong team there, and that's just the way it is. Um, but when you think of it, the amount of kids in Galway City and out Connemara, out West Galway, that aren't getting exposed to that high level football in school, um, and then you go and play a Mayo team that they're playing the Jarlets, they're playing the Sligo teams. You know, that's kind of the experience does come into it then. So, but I do think a lot of work needs to be done in schools in Galway.
yeah.
Like you
I was only thinking, would it be something worth examining for maybe Galway cities to have a
have,
combined school? Yeah.
I don't know when I was there used to be a hurling one, a hurling joint schools team for the city. So I think anything at the moment is better than the way it is. I think, to be honest, you just have the Bish in the city. Um, they're trying their best, and then apart from that, I don't think you have anyone. Maybe I'm leaving someone out. I don't think so. You've Hoare and Moore. They have a brilliant underage setup, and that's feeding into their school teams. Then you have Clare Galway and Jarlath's, Headford. It's just not enough. It's not enough at the moment. Fairness to Clare Galway, they're doing great work, and St. Charlotte's. But yeah, I think it's something that seriously has to be looked at in terms of developing players in Galway. Is the schools teams, the school systems. Something needs to be done.
For yourself, Johnny, you're still enjoying club football as much as ever?
I haven't had a long run of it now in the past couple of years. I've a lot of injuries, but please God, now this year I'll get a run of it. So yeah, I'll stay going as long as I can. Um, see where it takes us, but hanging on in there, enjoying it. That's the main thing.
For yourselves, it's obviously a positive year, and on the back of that, you had Jack Nolan and Jack Folan in with Galway, throughout the FPD. Jack O'Neill's obviously in there. Positive times for the club.
Yeah, it's great to see them guys playing. That they got a couple of minutes. I know Jack got a good few minutes. Jack Folan, sorry, got a good bit of FBD time. Jack O'Neill was playing yesterday. And Jack Nolan was just back from injury. He got a couple of minutes as well. So, yeah, it's great for them. As I do tell them, that's the best experience you'll get. You can, play all the club games you want, but that's where it's at. So yeah, it's great to see them. Great to see them wear the Galway jersey. It's a great honour for them, and it's great for the club as well. Unfortunately, Sam is out with his cruciate at the moment, so he'll be a massive loss for us, and I suppose a loss for Galway as well. So hopefully he recovers well. But yeah, it's good to see a couple of lads coming through and playing for Galway in the club. So yeah, very proud of them.
Yourselves, obviously, you came up short against South Care in the quarter final this year. Just on the big four at the minute, obviously, a lot being talked about it, probably in the off season more than anything. But Kerfin, Mike Cullen, Tombs Stairs, South in the last four again this year for the second year of running. It's difficult, isn't it, to break into that top four when for all these clubs trying so hard to get to a semi final.
Yeah, and they've been there for the last couple of years. So you can call a spade a spade. They're the top four. Um, so it's up to the rest of us to try bridge the gaps, and hopefully, hopefully get there this year, or whether it be a couple of years down the line. But yeah, in fairness to them, those four teams, the facts are there. They've been the best four teams in Galway for the last couple of years. Um, so yeah, you can't begrudge them. But as I said, it's up to us now to try get into that top four, and see where we're at.
Uh, For some clubs, they say it's very challenging to break in, but is it a good thing in another sense? It's obviously raising the standards across the club championship for teams to get to that level.
Yeah, I don't think any clubs should be giving out that it's hard to get in there. I suppose it's up to the clubs that aren't in there to get in there if they want to get in there. If they don't want to get in there, then you can make all the excuses in the world. So yeah, I think it's great. Yeah. Would you like two more teams in there? Obviously, yeah. But are it's grand saying you'd like them in there. Are other teams able to get into the top four? I suppose that's the question everyone's asking. So yeah, look, we'll see how it goes. It's a long while until the club championship starts again. So plenty of work to do, and plenty of time to do it.
And overall now with senior the way it's became 16 teams, four groups of four, it's quite a competitive championship at the minute.
It is, yeah, it is, and um, on any given day, someone take a scalp off someone else off. For example, the top four. You know, Someone outside of that top four could be beating those guys in a group game. So it is. In fairness, it's competitive. I think the new rules as well are brilliant. So that kind of teams aren't running away with it unless they're really are better, a good bit better than the opposition. So um, yeah, it's a good championship. In fairness, it is a good championship. And in Galway, it's a bit mad because if you have your games in Pear Stadium, there's going to be a gale force wind, so it's going to be a game of two halves. So you're never out of it. So it's yeah, it's good. It's good.
Great stuff, Johnny. Thanks a million for your time this evening.
Thanks a million, Paul. No bother.
This episode is sponsored by DroneWorks Ireland, your go-to place when it comes to buying a drone, repairing a drone, and also when you need professionals to carry out any aerial work you may need. Check out their website at www.droneworksireland.ie. Now, in part two of the show, I'm delighted to be joined by Edwin McGreal from Mayo to get the Mayo view on things this weekend ahead of their clash with Galway in the opening round of the National Football League. Edwin, it's always a nice way to start the league between Galway and Mayo. It's probably something we've become used to now over the last few years.
Yeah, it's not so much a soft landing as straight into the thick of it, Paul. It's we saw in the FPD final the last day, even though both teams had experimental sides, you could only see by the antics on both sidelines how seriously it mattered to win, whether there was a whole pile on the table or not. And yeah, look, at Sunday is look at obviously the first game you're looking at 2 points, but there's the rivalry aspect in it as well. So that'll focus a few minds on both sides of the border, I'm sure, between now and then.
You could really sense it the last day, even in the FPD. Galway obviously ahead of the break, but even the way Mayo came back and Galway just winning it by a point at the end. And interesting to even hear the Galway management speak after about how keen they were to even win that game.
Yeah, this is it, and I'm sure it was the same from a Mayo perspective. And you know, like if they weren't playing each other, in 7 days' time, would they have fielded closer to a fuller strength side? They possibly would, but I suppose it just puts the FBD in perspective compared to the league that you had. I went through it from the Connacht final last year. Of the 30 that started for both teams, only three of them started in June. So even though they want to win it and the team that they picked, they're sending them out to win. They are putting it in the context of a big league game coming just 7 days later, and so it was a bit of shadow boxing. But once they're inside the ropes, they're still taking it seriously. Whoever they put between those ropes.
Mayo at the minute, obviously, Andy's taken the reins over. Safe to say, probably a lot of excitement and enthusiasm at the minute around Mayo.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like in the sense, I think it depends on your starting point, and there would have been, I suppose, there would be a kind of an acceptance last year, or certainly after last year, that Mayo are not at the level that they had been, and and that kind of transition is a word people don't like to use, because it implies that you have to look past the current year, but that Mayo are certainly, they weren't All Ireland contenders last year, and they may not be this year, even though, funnily enough, to look at the bookies' odds, they're third favourites, which I found it hard to get my head around. But I think the first year of any new management will always bring a bit of momentum, a bit of enthusiasm, and certainly the way Mayo have been attempting to play at times, and it's difficult in the FBD because there's such a big turnover of personnel. I think Mayo had 31 different starters, 38 players played in total. So, trying to kind of see what the intent is of management is hard to kind of be certain about with that level of turnover. But at the same time, you could see an attacking intent in there. You could see them being more ambitious, perhaps leaving spaces at the back when they did so. So I think there was a particular approach under the last management. Kevin McStay and Stephen Rothford, they were quite controlled. They concentrated on possession, and probably didn't take a lot of risk. And felt that was certainly in the old rules. There was, I suppose, they wouldn't have been on their own in that regard, but probably didn't adapt to the new rules as well. So there is kind of a feeling in Mayo that they want to see a more expansive type of football, and it seems like that's what Andy Moran is going to bring. So that will certainly help get the supporters, feeling up for it and so on and so forth. But results will determine the mood in so many ways as well.
Is it a big difference there? Even I know the game against Roscommon, particularly Mayo, get lots of two pointers. Obviously, it was
Mm.
something they struggled with last year. Do you think that's maybe going to be a bit of a difference for Mayo going after two pointers now?
I think it is, and I think like Jack Carney kicked a two-pointer against Roscommon, and he kicked another two-pointer against Galway the last day, and he wasn't taking on those type of shots in previous years. I think he was a bit more conservative and a bit more cautious. So I think in him as one individual, you're seeing a little bit more abandon, a little bit more, backing yourself in that situation. And even like in the Roscommon game in particular, you saw a lot of direct ball kick passing that, like certainly under the old rules, was running the risk of turnovers and giving possession back to the opposition, and you could be dealing with 3 or 4 minutes of possession and so on and so forth. It's not quite the same now with the new rules, but at the same time, there is a risk reward, and I think Mayo striking the balance between, not turning over the ball and being, I suppose, exposed defensively, but having, if you kick a ball from the center of the pitch into the full forward line and it gets turned over, you should be able to get set fairly well defensively. So trying to strike the right balance where Mayo have that, I suppose, attacking intent without being too exposed at the back. And look, that's, I suppose, what everyone is trying to do, and it's sometimes easier said than done.
In terms of new faces, what new faces do you expect to see from Mayo on Sunday? Do you think there'll be a mix between experience, or how do you think Andy's going to pick this team on Sunday?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because it's Galway. I think it's not a game he might maybe experiment as much as, and because it's the first game, he mightn't experiment as much as he might in later games. So I think you'll see a reasonably experienced team. Like Mayo played a challenge game against Clare on Friday night, and they were a lot closer to full strength in that game than they were on Sunday in Tuam. So, and of the guys that you might see, I think, you could be looking at someone like Fenton Kelly from Davos, but he was in the squad last year. He played game time last year. Conal Dawson from Westport played very well against, up in Oma against Tyrone last year. Keane McHale at 13, really good left-footed player, two-pointer option. He has, I think he played the first league game last year, and I think he got injured. Someone like Sean Moran has been around the squad as well, and is getting more up to demands physically for Intercounty. So in terms of players that haven't been in there before, I'm not sure we'll see a massive amount of them, maybe in the first couple of weeks. But it's hard to say with certain the midfield duo and maybe the two, if Mayo decide to go with two kind of target men at wing forwards as well. There's potential for some of the players that have seen very little action before, like Dara Byrne played the last day, or not Dara Byrne, but Dara Joyce played midfield the last day for Mayo from tomorrow's. Nathan Moran was wing forward. There's kind of a lot of similarity between a lot of Mayo players in the mix there, so you could see a couple of fresh options there. The other one, of course, is Kobe McDonald, who's just out of minor. He played a half against Clare. He just turned 18 in December. I'm not sure we'll see him in Salt Hill. And of course, he's due to be heading to Aussie rules in later on this year. So it'll be interesting to see what impact, if any, he has on Mayo during the year. But yeah, I don't think we'll see, too many guys that Galway people aren't familiar with, and they might be players that they mightn't seen a whole pile of, but they've probably seen, play once or twice.
In terms of Kobe, it's interesting there, as you mentioned, because he's obviously scheduled to go to Australia.
Mm.
Do you think Mayo will have him for the full year? How do you think this is going to work?
It's a good question, and it's hard to be certain with it. And in terms of, like, I suppose, we would have, he's waiting certainly until his leaving cert. So that brings him to late June. Mayo haven't intended to play football too long past late June at the minute, or in the last few years. So I think, look at, I don't think the time is going to be an issue. It's just a question of whether by then he has, shown that he is of a level that he can make a meaningful contribution. And I don't think just because he's going to Aussie rules, I don't think Mayo necessarily are going to overly rush him. He will be playing under 20 this year as well. So if he's someone that starts to nail down the place or certainly become a very meaningful option off the bench, I'd say Mayo can have him for as long as they're in the championship, and I think potentially the leaving search would be more of an issue than heading to Australia.
Do you think Rob Henley will be number one this year?
Um, I think he will. I think he will because Colm Reap was the guy that played pretty much most of the games under Kevin McStay and Stephen Rochford, and he's taken a year out. So of the other guys in the squad, you have Jack Livingston, who's like Rob Henley, also from Bravely, my own club. You have David Dolan from Bal, and you have Adrian Phillips from Ballyhonus. Like they have very little experience, so Mayo didn't really develop a second or third choice keeper. Colm, the only game time other than Colm Reap during last year's league and championship was when Colm Reap got injured in the league final against Kerry, and Adrian Phillips came on for 20 minutes at the end, and that was as much time as he got. So I think I think the lack of experience there could be a challenge. I thought Jack Livingston did well the last day. David Dolan and Adrian Phillips are very good goalkeepers, and it will depend how they're doing in training and so on and so forth. But just I have a feeling that they might be kind of more medium term prospects for Mayo, and the fact that Rob Henley has, extensive championship experience, and look, it is such an option for 2-pointer frees as well. Might just tip the scales in his favour.
Does this game take on more importance for Mayo at the weekend, considering the recent record over Galway?
Um, I think it does a little bit. I think it's not just losing to Galway in recent years, but Mayo have been physically bossed by Galway, which is like the reverse was happening, 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago. And so I think it's important for Mayo to try and start moving that around. Now, at the same time, like, it is the league, and like it was only when I was looking at it yesterday, I had forgotten about the league game last year where Galway won, pulling up by 10, 12
Yeah.
points in Castlebar. And that had very little bearing on the championship game, but it might, at the back of guys' minds, just the experience and the ability to get over the line against a particular team is important. But it's a step up from the FBD. They'll be going, reasonably full strength. They'll be trying to win it. But it's still January football, and you have a strange situation in Division One where teams take it seriously at the start, and then if they're comfortable, they don't want to be in a league final, and so they hold back a little bit. And like Mayo found themselves in a league final last year. It was very strange on the last day. They actually topped the table,
Yeah.
and they beat Donegal by 2 points. Donegal with 5 minutes to go missed a penalty and hit the crossbar. And if Donegal had scored either of those and won by a point, Mayo were relegated. So it shows the kind of how incredible a competition it is, but it's also a very kind of artificial thing where winning it is not something that teams tend to go after in a massive way. I know Jack O'Connor is big on the league, but generally counties start pulling up the handbrake the closer they get to championship. And so, how seriously do you take a competition that has that? It's very good for development and for progress. And then I think most counties want to stay up, and the debate in Mayo for some people are saying, would we be better off if we were to improve and develop and try as many players as possible? And if that meant relegation, would that be the end of the world? But I'm not sure if you said that to Andy Moore, and he'd be saying, yeah, we'll be happy with that. So it's because you don't want to be in your first year, you don't want to be getting relegated. So it's a strange one in that regard, but certainly playing Galway, and the recent record that Mayo have suffered from. Like I remember a time coming up to 2016 where I think Aidan O'Shea had got to that game in 2016 where he had not lost a minor under 21 or senior game to Galway, and he would have been 26 at that stage, and they were playing, once, twice a year. And it's been almost the opposite since, it's been and certainly in the last 3 or 4 years. So, I think from a psychological point of view, that does have a factor. But again, I'll go back to the league game last year. It was a hammering, it was a trouncing, and Mayo still ended up in the league final, and people nearly forgot about it. Whereas if that happens in championship, that's a result that sends you back for a couple of years.
Where do you think the rivalry is at the minute between Galway and Mayo?
Well, Galway are edging it. There's no doubt about it. But I think if you look back in the last few years, that 10-point victory is probably an isolated one. I was looking at it like since 2015, I think, or 2016, like Galway have won 9 times, Mayo have won 7 times, and the majority of the games have been won by 3 points or less, particularly on the Galway side of things. So that shows to me how competitive it is, and it also shows to me, and this is something that would be a concern in Mayo, not just against Galway, but in tight games. That in tight games, Galway have had the wherewithal and the savvy and the control to get it done. Like you saw in the kind of final last year, big gale at Mayo's back after 52 minutes, they were level and they couldn't see it out from there. And we've seen that in the last two Connacht Championship defeats as well, where Mayo were, or certainly the previous one, Mayo were leading going into injury time and lost the game. And it was also true of the Donegal game last year. Mayo were level in injury time. A draw was enough to get them into a preliminary quarter final. Donegal scored with the last attack of the game. The previous year, Mayo had Dublin beaten. Dublin got a draw with the last kick of the game, and that stopped Mayo topping their group. And they lost to Derry after penalties, but they were leading with 30 seconds to go of normal time, of injury time and normal time. So that kind of ability to, I've no doubt that it'll go down to the home straight on Sunday, and it's a question of, have Mayo the savvy and the control and the wherewithal in those moments in a way that and that's their ways that Galway have been on top in the past. And Tuam last Sunday, I know there was such a change in personnel, but that was another example of a Mayo were in front going into injury time. They had two very good attacks. The first shot by Fergal Boland, I don't think he should have taken it on. I think Mayo could have worked the ball through the hands for a bit longer. Fintan Kelly took on a shot that was probably more on, but execution was poor. And then you had the two breaches. The first one, Fergal Boland's one, in fairness, was very unfortunate. It was a breach, but you could. I think if you wouldn't be human to blame if you were blaming him for going for that ball. And then the last one at the end, again, time of year with such a turnover of players. Adam Barrett comes back, contesting a breaking ball. Two defenders are actually ahead of him, and they're the last ones to cross over. And I think when you have a settled team and so on, you're a lot clearer in terms of what you have to do in those situations. But again, it's all part of the same wider picture in terms of Mayo's game management later on.
In terms of that FPD final, was there any new faces on the Galway side of things that impressed you?
Yeah, look, I suppose in terms of like there was obviously there was very little in the way of experience in terms of you had Kieran Malloy at captain, at centre half back. You had Sean Mulkern at full back. I must admit I'm very impressed by Conor Flaherty as a goalie. I know he's not a new face. I know he's been kind of
Hmm.
thereabouts, but I think I think he's the best goalkeeper I've seen in Galway. I think Conor Gleeson has had a lot of big moments for Galway. In fairness, Mayo know all about it in terms of the kind of final 2 years ago in Salt Hill. He's but I feel Flaherty has just a more complete game. I think his kicking is better. I think his game management is better. I just felt like I felt it was a very balanced approach in the forward line. I felt they were they did Galway things like in terms of they just looked that little bit. And sometimes we can overgeneralize with Mayo and Galway, but you always get the feeling that when Galway are attacking, they're a little bit more purposeful, a little bit more, aware of what they need to do and how they're going to do it. But how many of them are we going to see on Sunday? Probably similar to Mayo, you like less than a handful, realistically.
Where do you see Galway at this year in terms of competing? Because obviously last year, big setback to lose to Meath, and even if you're looking at the weekend, um, Damien Comer and Shane Walsh obviously carrying knocks at the minute.
Hmm.
John Mayer recovering from a serious knee injury. Haven't seen Keane Darcy either, since from the Ballyboden campaign. So for Galway supporters, they're probably nearly trying to guess what the team will be Sunday, and obviously won't probably be that close to their championship 15 with some of those players missing. But where do you feel there?
Well, I suppose if you look at what the fact that they managed to beat Mayo last year, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think both Comer and Walsh were missing
Yeah.
that day in Castlebar. Shows the depth that they've had, but and certainly Rob Finnerty, like he's a classy footballer, but he's become more and more integral to their successes. I genuinely think that if Damien Comer was fully fit for the last few years, Galway would have crossed the line. I think he's the type of player that very few counties have, and that he is just a nightmare to come against, because he's so strong, he's so direct, he's belligerent in the best sense of the word, and defiant. Where are they at? Where is anybody at? Again, I was going back to the odds. The fact that you have like Kerry, I think were 7-4, Donegal were I think 5-2 or 7-2, and then it was 10-1 Mayo and 11 and 12-1 Galway, Tyrone, etc. So that'll tell you people are thinking, there's a bit of a gap to Kerry. Donegal have the best opportunity to kind of close it, but I don't know. It's not simple to defend the title. The fact that Kerry teams have won, all the club titles have people saying that the new rule suits Kerry better than anyone else, and there's a bit of truth in that. But I still think it's a fairly open championship, and it's very hard at this point to say, okay, they're not contenders. So I think Galway have to show a little bit more before we can say, oh yeah, they're really in the mix. But they certainly have the personnel. If they can get everyone fit and well, and they can, they can play the right type of football to play to their strengths, I think they won't be a million miles away, So they're probably more contenders than Mayo, but I still see Connacht being, I was going to say 50-50 battle. Roscommon will come into that ratio equation as well, So that's by the by. But no, I wouldn't be calling them contenders just yet, but I wouldn't be saying absolutely not either. The league will tell us a little bit, and we'll see what they're like coming towards championship. Missing Matthew Thompson for the league is a setback. Paul Conroy, I don't know, is there any word since? There was no word on Sunday.
Yeah.
And Peter Cook, logistically, it's a challenge. And you look at the likes of, guys that Galway, not just Damien Comer, guys that Galway have had to plough on without in recent years. And the fact that they've been so competitive, I think if they were able to, avoid injuries to their top and unavailability to their top 5 or 6 footballers, not just Damien Comer, I think they'd have crossed the line by now.
Just before we finish, Edwin, how do you see Sunday going?
It's very difficult to know because Tuam isn't worth a whole pile of to us in terms of information. It gives. I don't even think it gives a psychological edge. It gives bragging rights, but the bragging rights will, they'll be the shortest lived bragging rights in terms of just a week later they play again. It's Mayo are certainly trying to play a little bit differently this year, and it'll be very interesting when they have, we've seen most of their experienced players at some stage in the FBD, but when they put them all together, how well did it work? For instance, in Tuam the last day, they didn't kick as much ball inside as they did in Roscommon, but they were missing Ryan O'Donoghue and Aidan O'Shea, who will be huge outlets for inside ball in that regard, and Tommy Conroy as well. So it'll be interesting to see how direct Mayo are in that regard. I was going to say there it's going to be really close and it's come down to the wire, but sure, we all know that. There's an odd possibility that a team could just run away with it, but the way the new rules are set up, it's very hard to hold a lead for an extended period of time. So I think it'll come down to the wire, and it'll be just a case of who can play with the best heads, the best composure in the big moments, which are realistically the last couple of minutes and your injury time. So yeah, can I call it 50-50? Is that too cliched? Or the old one that they used to say about Mayo Galway is the form goes out the window.
Yeah.
And I remember James Horan saying that's nonsense. Form has to count for something. You can say that it can narrow a little bit. But I think he said it ahead of 2013. In fairness, and people were saying, "Oh, form will go out the window in this game." And he was like, "No, it won't go out the window," which was quite bullish at the time, but he was right, But you just look at the results, like I say, in recent years, that league game last year was an aberration, and I think Mayo will they won't want that to happen again. I don't see it happening again. Galway looked like a team that had embraced the 2 pointers, and Mayo were kind of playing in the old rules. I think that's not going to be the case on Sunday. So I think it'll go right down to the wire, and hopefully, Kobe McDonald might come on and score the winner or something. You never know.
Edwin McGreal, thanks very much for your time.
No problem, Paul.